Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Friday night edition of the program, live and national. Happy to be here with you. Our phone number is 833-48. What is the number? I never know the number. 482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And it's amazing how I forget that number over and over and over. But if you want to call, that's the number to call. And the big story today, a couple of big stories. I think the biggest story I saw was that President Trump did not win the Nobel Peace Prize, but the person that did, Maria Corina Machado, she is the person that most Venezuelans wanted to be their president. And the dictator there, Maduro, he decided to throw her off the ballot. And she was disqualified and she couldn't run. And obviously, he appointed himself president again. Well, guess what? She won the Nobel Peace Prize, and she gave it to President Trump. Listen to this.
The person who actually got the Nobel Prize called me, and said, I'm accepting this in honor of you because you really deserved it. A very nice thing to do. I didn't say, then give it to me, though. I think she might have. She was very nice. And you could also say it was given out for 24, and I was running for office in 24. But there are those that say we did so much that they should have done it. But I don't take. I'm happy because I saved millions of lives, many millions of lives. The person who,
of course, President Trump is right, and I think he's definitely in the running for when they look at 25 and 26. And the effort, I think it's going to be very difficult to ignore him from here on out. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, then great. I will be surprised, though. I feel like the international community, I think he's had a number of nominations from people. I don't think they can continue to play their game, right? You can play the game for a while, but you can't play it forever. And I think the Nobel Peace Prize, at least the committee there, they're going to have to succumb to the fact that the world likes Trump. Trump has done an amazing job on a lot of things. And whether you like him or not, whether you like his style or not, whether you think he's couth or not, well, any of those things don't really matter. What matters is 8 wars in 8 months, including this one that's currently ending right now. And that's great. And, of course, the critics are going to say, oh, come on, 8 wars in 8 months in these countries nobody's even heard of. But the most important thing is Russia and Ukraine, and he didn't do anything, right? Remember when he said he would end it overnight? And this is what they're going to harp on. And listen, they have every right to do that. That's fine. Go for it. If that's what you want to do, you do you. But I will say, you're not being realistic. And I will turn to you and say, what have you done? What is it that you have done for this country? What is it that you've done towards world peace? And I would put them on the spot because ultimately, Donald Trump is, in my opinion, he's killing the game. Literally killing the game. Not only is he making gains in important areas, right? Areas where no other Republican has made gains. You're talking about minority communities like Hispanics and blacks and whatever. No. It goes beyond that. You're talking about making communities safer. Entire states and big cities like Chicago and what's happening in Tennessee and Memphis. These are big deals, in my opinion, right? These are people that were dying that aren't dying anymore. So what are you going to do? Right? You can't ignore that. You have to take that into account. You have to realize what's going on and say, you know what? This is the real deal. Donald Trump is making it happen, Captain, whether you like it or not. I see it in a sandwich, man, right? It's a line from the movie Scarface. It is what it is. Anyway, so that's what's going on with El Trompito Donaldus Magnus. Then we move on and we look at a couple of more headlines. China becoming very hostile. We're going to talk about that. I think on Monday we're going to talk about that with Gordon Chang, who's going to be joining us to talk to us a little bit more about Trump's tweet today about China becoming a little more hostile and the meeting with President Xi being canceled. But I want to talk about the shutdown. Of course, the shutdown is going to maintain at least till next Tuesday. But by the way, last night I ended the program without announcing that the Senate had passed a funding for the United States military. So that is the case. But now Russ Vought, who is the director of the Office of Management and Budget, he says that we are ready to lay off a lot of federal workers during the government shutdown. Trump administration has now begun laying off federal workers today, as we're now in the 10th day of the U.S. government shutdown. The rifts have begun. I thought they had to wait till 60 days. But you know what? Trump's a smart guy. Maybe the expectation was 60 days. And he says, well, if we start now and they sue us, we'll have a couple of months of lead time. Smart guy. And I don't know if that's the case. I'm just speculating. But the rifts have begun, and that's according to OMB Director Russ Vought, who wrote on Twitter saying, obviously the rifts are the reduction in force letters. And the unions representing the government employees have vowed to fight these layoffs with the lawsuits. And the lawsuits are, the usual lawfare that we've seen coming from the Democrats where, honestly, they lose typically, right? But they win in the first round. Right, they'll win and they get that headline that says Trump loses in federal court. Federal judge sides against Trump on federal shutdown and blah, blah, blah. Right. That's how that'll go. That'll be Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. And I don't know, give it 30 days or less typically. Some other courts, Court of Appeals, are a little longer than 30 days if you want to get to the Supreme Court, where they say, all right, we'll take it up because that's a real constitutional question. And sadly, that's the case. But that's what happens. Happens every time. We see it all the time. And Trump typically does well. When this goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, they go, come on, who are you kidding? Why are you wasting so much time? Why are you playing this game? That's what lawfare is all about. This is exactly how the Democrats roll when it comes to Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. Now, oh, dang it. That was a mistake on my part. I wanted to play a clip for you, but I just closed my cut list page. But we had Mr. Good. Let me know if we have a cut from Hakeem Jeffries arguing with the host on CNBC. It was such a good cut. It was out yesterday. I didn't use it yesterday. You let me know if we have it or not. But while you're doing that, I wanted to let everybody know. I want to talk about a few things tonight. It's Friday night. On Friday nights, I like to let my hair down. Either talk about things that are interesting to me, maybe not to you, but interesting to me, or, stuff that's a little bit off the beaten path. And we're going to talk about elections, right? Because I think elections, we're not out of the water yet, right? We're out of the woods, I should say. We're still in hot water with elections in some areas. It was just a couple of months ago, right, in Hamtramck, Michigan, where you had local councilmen that were indicted because they were caught ballot stuffing. Right, and that's just one place. This has happened over and over and over. There was a congressman caught in Philadelphia last year. It was his second offense. That was the same congressman from literally from Abscam, right? From the famous movie, what was that, American Hustle? It just is crazy to think what goes on in some neighborhoods like Philly, like Hamtramck, like others. The more we learn, the more we know. But don't sell these people short, right? This is not that everybody's corrupt. This is that there are corrupt systems in place, and they're doing what they need to do in order to get the votes they need. The one in Philly, he was straight up selling these things. He said, what do you need? I'll sell it to you. And he was selling ballot positions and whatnot. It really was just really beyond the pale. But again, this is how politics is in so many areas. By the way, speaking of politics, there's something I wanted to mention. Scrolling through social media, and I see a post of the candidate for governor in New Jersey, a guy named Jack Ciattarelli. He's a Republican assemblyman running against a Democrat congresswoman named Mikey Sherrill. And she has not been a great candidate. She's not a great debater. And her policies absolutely, I'm going to say they suck for lack of a better word. She also was the lady that was on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God. And he asked her, is it true what Newsmax said that you made $7 million and didn't report it? And she goes, I'd have to ask my husband. I'm not sure. She didn't know if she made $7 million. Well, guess what? She actually was penalized for this by the ethics committee. There was an ethics investigation and a finding against her for not disclosing certain things. So you tell me, if in your job the ethics committee finds against you, and when you're asked about that publicly, you go, I'm not sure. Let me ask my spouse. Does that sound like a mistake, like benefit of the doubt, or like somebody who's a fake, who's a phony, who's a fraud? Exactly my point. So she's not doing well. And I think the people of New Jersey, they might have been born at night, but we were not born last night. So people don't want to see what's going on with her. They don't want to give her the benefit of the doubt. I believe that Jack Ciattarelli is well on his way to becoming governor in the state of New Jersey. I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch because it is New Jersey. It's a very blue state. But I can tell you, Jack is performing well in Hudson County, which is very blue, totally blue. Like you're talking like 8-1 blue. He's performing well in Essex County. He's performing well in some towns. He's got Democrat mayors. And not just like moderate Democrats, nonpartisan Democrats. I'm talking hyper-partisan Democrats. He's got the mayor of North Bergen, New Jersey, Nick Sacco, who somebody I've met, I have a lot of respect for. Don't always agree with everything politically, but he's a decent human being. And I can tell you this. He had him at his mayor's ball yesterday, and Jack Ciattarelli got the endorsement of one of the biggest Democrat mayors in North Jersey. Looks good. I think he's doing really, really well. So I'm not going to be surprised if the Trump-endorsed Republican candidate for governor in New Jersey takes it home. I'll keep you up to speed on that. We're going to talk about elections and more straight ahead, plus your phone calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
An investigation is underway tonight after a Newburgh woman says blank ballots were delivered to her house.
She says she found these state ballots inside an Amazon package. This comes, of course, as Mainer is getting ready to vote on question 1, which would require voter ID and also make other changes to Maine's elections.
Political reporter Jackie Mundry has this story.
A woman in Newburgh says when she went to her front steps to pick up an Amazon package, it looked like it had already been opened and was retaped. So she took a photo of it, expecting items inside to be damaged. She found the items she ordered, as well as hundreds of blank Maine ballots and items she did not order. She says she called her town office right away and handed those ballots over. This comes just weeks before Mainers will be voting on a citizens referendum that would require voter ID and make changes to the state's current absentee voting laws. In statements from Republican lawmakers and the voter ID campaign, they're urging Mainers to vote yes on question 1 next month. Secretary of State Shenna Bellows has repeatedly said that Maine elections are safe and secure. We went to her office today, though she declined to speak on camera. In a statement, the office says these allegations are serious and being investigated by law enforcement.
So this stuff is being investigated by law enforcement. Could you believe that we have all of this ballot chicanery going on? Like I talked about earlier, this is just the latest that's going on here. But so much of this is happening, and for me, I think the whole thing is out of control. But I want to talk to the executive director of the Honest Elections Project, Jason Sneed. He's with us now. Jason Sneed, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on the program.
Let's talk about this. I'm guessing that you're familiar with this story. And honestly, you know, I'm glad that these things are coming to mind because we have to stay up to speed with not what's just happening with every local election, but really in every jurisdiction, right? Because our elections, people tend to think that these elections, even especially for federal office like president, is like one election, not realizing it's like 2,000 or 3,000 elections at once that become this one big election.
Well, that's right. And that's actually one of the unique things about American elections. They're not centralized. They are, by design, very decentralized. And so we have thousands of jurisdictions that are running elections across the country for offices all the way from dog catcher to president of the United States. It's a great strength of our system because it allows states to run things their own way, and it allows for them to essentially try new ideas and for the best and strongest ideas to make their way to the top and be replicated nationwide. But unfortunately, the downside is, of course, that you can have states like Maine that have been very resistant to some of those ideas, like basic safeguards in elections. And then, of course, you have situations like what's developed now, where a woman orders a bag of rice and gets 250 ballots instead.
Right. Yeah, listen, I get what you're saying, and I think that's spot on. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what Honest Elections Project is doing to make sure that we're, getting to the root of ballot fraud and protecting Americans so that we have safe elections.
Well, we're very active all over the country trying to help states advance strong election integrity laws like voter identification, good laws around maintaining clean and accurate voter rolls, proof of citizenship requirements, and getting foreign funding and foreign interference out of our elections. And we also, of course, pay very close attention to situations like what has developed in Maine over the last couple of weeks. And in this particular instance, as soon as we got word that there was a potential breach here in the chain of custody with these ballots that were being shipped from the printer to a local election office, we immediately filed what are called FOAA, or basically Freedom of Information Act requests, to the Maine Secretary of State and to the town of Newburgh. And we've since filed a third with the town nearby that was actually supposed to receive these ballots, so that we can understand the full story, not just what's being told to the public, but what the immediate reaction was behind the scenes to make sure that, as I said, the full story is eventually going to be revealed.
Jason Sneed, with but a minute to go, should we tolerate this type of thing? Should we have any tolerance for misplacing ballots?
Not at all. This is the sort of thing that is very basic, and it is essential that you have safeguards in place to ensure that we have full chain of custody and full control and full accounting for all of these ballots. Voter confidence is absolutely essential to the democratic process, but it is also a tenuous thing. When you lose it, it is difficult to get it back. And that's why the reaction to these sorts of situations should never be to sweep it under the rug. It should be to confront it, to be completely transparent, and to hold the responsible parties accountable. That's what you need to see in order to maintain public confidence in the elections, and that's why we're continuing to track this story.
Jason Sneed, Executive Director of the Honest Elections Project. Check them out at honestelections.org. Jason, keep up the great work. I think you guys are doing an amazing job in Maine and everywhere else that you're doing freedom of information or FOIA requests. And Godspeed to you, sir. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
You bet. And amigos, we come back. We're going to talk about safety, guns, your calls, your thoughts, your opinions as well. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
They go around, they just lie. They just lie. And everything's a big lie with them. Well, the other side, and the other thing I don't understand is, Christy, I looked at crime numbers in Chicago. They're through the roof, and I have a governor who stands up every day and tells us how wonderful Chicago is. It's just a lie. It's like a con job. It's like Gavin Newsom. He says how well he's doing in California, and they're doing terribly. Population's getting smaller. People are leaving. and other people are coming in, and I wouldn't say it's an even trade.
That's President Trump commenting on crime. And of course, we see crime spiking in places like Chicago, New York City, Portland, Oregon, and others. And this is why the federal government has been stepping in so many ways. And I want to get to the bottom of this because in America, there's a handful of researchers that are really up to speed on crime that I know of. And one of my favorites is John Lott. He's from the Crime Prevention Research Center, and he's with us now. John Lott, welcome back. It's been too long.
It's great to talk to you again. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So talk to me. I know there's so many things that are on your mind, and I'm happy to talk about those things. But I wanted to get your initial reaction to what you think is going on. I know the courts have been trying to slow President Trump down in some of the areas he's trying to go into, like Portland. He's in Chicago. He's done, I think, some pretty amazing work in D.C. And the reason I think that is because the people, the public, we the people are out there saying, we love it that there's federal law enforcement here. We feel safer. Why? More guns on the street. My opinion. What say you?
Right. Well, I mean, it's not rocket science. If you want to reduce crime, you have to make it riskier for criminals to commit crime. And that means things like higher arrest rates, higher conviction rates, longer prison sentences. You can also make it riskier by allowing victims to be able to go and defend themselves. And in D.C., Trump has hit on all those points by having more boots on the ground, both in terms of federal agents like FBI and others, as well as National Guard. You've increased the arrest rate dramatically there. They've had Judge Eugene Pirro has been much more aggressive in terms of prosecuting criminals, adult criminals anyway, than were in the past. And, they're getting sentenced to real sentences. And then Trump has also moved to make it much easier for people to get concealed carry permits. Before this year, it was taking 6 to 8 months for somebody to go through the process to get a concealed carry permit. Now, a few months ago, they reduced it just down to 2 weeks for somebody to be able to get a permit.
Was that by bringing in additional manpower from federal resources, or what did they do?
They basically threatened D.C. with legal action if they didn't go and get their house in order. I mean, I think they were purposely slow walking the applications there in order to try to discourage people.
I saw that happen in New Jersey on multiple occasions. Many people that I know had applied for whether a permit to purchase or even after the Bruen decision, an actual concealed carry permit. And, New Jersey state law says that they have 30 days to adjudicate your case. And people were telling me it's taken me 6 months, 5 months, totally outside of, the guidelines of the law. And once, the NRA and a couple other gun rights groups brought some cases, guess what? Local police departments were processing these applications very quickly. They figured out we can get paid on the process. They raised the rate like 10x. It went from from $25 to like $75 or some crazy number like that on one thing. And then they raised the other one another thing. And that's how they come up with that big multiple. But either way, people are getting what they need. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at surveys of police officers, and police are extremely supportive of people being able to get concealed carry permits. Police know how important for their own safety having a gun is. And if you look at surveys of like Police One, which has about 450,000 members, it's by far the largest private organization of police in the United States, you'll find about 92% of police officers support liberal concealed carry laws that make it easy for people to be able to get a permanent concealed handgun for protection. You'll find almost 80% of police think that civilian private ownership of guns is either extremely or very important in terms of reducing crime rates. So, it's, in places like Los Angeles, the Trump administration has just had to step in and sue Los Angeles County because they were taking a year and a half or more to go and issue permits. I mean, there are people that their permit applications appear to be completely permanently lost.
John Lott, we can all speculate as to why the Democrats, the left within the government, slow walk and drag their feet on these things. But what's your assessment on why these left-leaning administrations, Karen Bass, like you mentioned in Los Angeles, and others, why are they so hell-bent on having a disarmed populace? Or I should say, at least a disarmed legal populace, right? Because the criminals all have guns.
They don't want to have police make it difficult for criminals to commit crime. You have district attorneys who don't believe you should prosecute criminals. I mean, you have somebody like Alvin Bragg in Manhattan who basically is refusing to prosecute people for firearms violations. You have what could be a felony, an aggravated assault, being reduced time after time to a simple assault because they will not include the weapons charges in the crime. And that's a big difference between a misdemeanor and a felony often is whether or not a weapon was used in the crime or not. So, it comes down to this notion of, do you think making it riskier for criminals to commit crime in all these different ways makes it so you have less crime? And unfortunately, a lot of people on the left don't think that you need to make it risky for criminals to commit crime. They don't think it has any impact on the rate that crime occurs. You kind of wonder whether these people have had any kids.
It's wild. It truly is. Now, Dr. John Lott, talk to us a little bit about the Crime Prevention Research Center and some of the latest research you're working on.
Sure. Well, we're basically a group of academics. I've been an academic most of my life. I've had positions at Stanford, University of Chicago, the Wharton Business School, Yale, UCLA. We have other academics associated with it. I've also worked in the federal government, most recently as senior advisor for research and statistics in the U.S. Department of Justice. And we look at a broad range of crime issues, everything from policing to vote fraud to various gun control issues. What we've been working on most recently is just going through the errors in the FBI crime data. And it's my own strong belief is that the FBI was involved in trying to influence the election last year in terms of the debate about crime. You remember headline after headline where you'd have, the New York Times or others have a headline that's saying crime is falling, but people mistakenly think that it's increasing. Or David Muir in the presidential debate between Trump and Harris, where he fact-checked Trump with FBI data. Well, that was all based on data from 2022. They come out about 9-10 months after the year with the data for the latest year. So the data for 2023 didn't come out until September of this last year. And when they did that, they updated the data for 2022, but they didn't mention it in their press release, which 99% of reporters only read the press release. And even if you read the report itself, they just had a vague footnote that said, we've updated the data for 2022. No mention that it had gone from a drop to an increase. And no explanation for why they made the change. And even when I discovered it and made an issue of it and reporters would call up the FBI, all they would say is we stand by our data. They would not, before the election, they would not make an explicit statement saying that they had gone from a drop to an increase. And so all those headlines that we had last year were wrong. And most recently, we've just been going through errors in the active shooting reports that the FBI puts out every year. This is data that academics use in their research, that media reports rely on constantly, that legislative debates are involved with, that's used in court cases. And I'll just give you an example. In the 11 years from 2014 through 2024, the FBI claims that there was only 14 active shooting cases in the United States where a legally armed civilian with a concealed carry permit stopped an active shooting attack. An active shooting attack is a case where guns fired in public, not part of some other type of crime like a gang fight over drug turf, anything from one person being shot at and missed all the way up to a mass public shooting. Rather than 14, We think it's 202. And nobody needs to take my word for it. I actually started doing work on this when I was working at the Department of Justice, because one of my tasks were to look at the FBI data. And nobody needs to take my word for it. On our website at crimeresearch.org, we go through the different cases. They're listed there. The underlying documents are there so people can check themselves to make sure that they actually fit the FBI definition. But rather than the 4% of cases that the FBI claims, I think it's 36%. But the size of the errors by the FBI has gotten larger. In 2024, for example, the FBI claims that there is zero, not one single case in the United States where a concealed carry permit holder stopped an active shooting attack. I think 48% of the active shooting attacks were stopped. And one argument that I had with the FBI, which I was unsuccessful with when I was working at the Department of Justice, is that you have to separate out places which are gun-free zones where it's illegal for somebody to carry. I mean, you're talking about law-abiding citizens. You can't expect a law-abiding citizen to be carrying a permanent concealed handgun in a place where it's a crime for them to go and carry.
Right.
And if you separate those out, you find that, in fact, in 2024, 63% of the active shooting attacks that occurred in places where people were legally able to carry were stopped by people with concealed handgun permits. 63% is a lot different than zero.
Right. And what years were you working with the Department of Justice?
I was there in 2020 and the very beginning of 2021.
Excellent. John Lott, let everybody know how they can learn more about the research that you're doing at the Crime Prevention Research Center. Where do they go and how do they follow you?
They go to our website at crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org, and all the stuff we've been talking about and a lot more is there.
Outstanding. Dr. John Lott, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. Very, very interesting information. And my hope is that the tide will be soon turning, thanks to your scholarship and a lot of advocacy from a lot of patriots that are out there. So Godspeed to you, and thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm sure Cash and Dan will get to this stuff eventually, but I'm sure they have like 50 million things that they have to go and deal with right now.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure they got their hands full. But thank God there's good guys like you out there on the job that can remind everybody of what's going on, because that's, you're right. When you start cooking the books or fudging the numbers, it doesn't do anybody any favors. So thank you for that. John Lott, Crime Prevention Research Center. Check them out at crimeprevention.org. Thank you, sir.
Crimeresearch.org.
I'm sorry, crimeresearch.org. Thank you for the correction. Crimeresearch.org. John Lott, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir. All right. I think we lost him. Anyway, amigos, we come back with your thoughts, your calls, and reactions to everything that's going on. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if the viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company this Friday night. Looking forward to speaking with you. Our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we've been talking about crime. We've been talking about how the numbers on guns get cooked. We've been talking about ballot stuffing and how they just lost ballots in Maine, and just how crazy things are when it comes to elections. We're not out of the woods yet. Despite all of the discrepancies we saw in 2020, there's still a lot of work ahead of us. And I want to get your thoughts, your reactions on everything that's going on with everything. There's a number of things that we're talking about tonight. In addition to those topics, we also have everything that's in the breaking news category. And, of course, we're going to talk about the media and how NPR and PBS have been just really doubling down on their left-wing bias, as well as the energy crisis that you have in New Jersey. And if you don't know about it, you're going to find out, because there has been quite a increase, right? An increase in New Jersey on energy prices. But right now I want to go to the phones. Let's go to Paul calling us from Boise, Idaho. KBOI is the station out there. Paul, go right ahead.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's really created a shift storm here in Idaho, deciding to do Doha. It's pretty much out in the desert. There's some homes around the base, but for the most part, it's just sagebrush and coyote brush. And, if they want to build a base there within the base and keep it contained, I really don't have a problem with that. The only problem I have is their lineage. They were part of 9/11, and they were holding up the Hamas.
Are you talking about the base that the Americans are building in Qatar?
They're not building it in Qatar. They're building it in the United States at Mountain Home Air Force Base.
Oh, a different one.
Yeah. It's created quite a shitstorm is what I was trying to say. And, I guess if I lived closer to it, I might feel the same way as they do. But, I'm set off down in Boise, which is 60 minutes away by car. So,
right.
I don't know. It's kind of a shock more than anything else.
Well, I mean, I think we had to expect something that was going to happen, right? I mean, for President Trump to be able to achieve the peace deal, right? He's got to give everybody something, right? Everybody wants something. So the Qataris are like, hey, I want this. I want to train. All right, we have an Air Force base in Qatar. All right, well, we want to train with you guys. All right, well, then, he had to agree to that stuff or not, right? And not get the deal. So, this is part of the reason I like Trump. It doesn't always benefit him, but he knows how to make a deal, and he's willing to make a deal because he realizes good deals are where everybody wins something. And that's just the reality of how life works. I think oftentimes politicians will look at this and they try to make deals so one-sided where it's only them that benefit that they end up making more enemies than allies. And that's part of the problem. Paul, thank you for the call. I got to take a pause right here. Shout out to everybody in Boise, Idaho, and your calls and more. We got a couple of minutes left. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company this evening, Friday evening, live and national. I'm not mailing it in. I am here. Everybody's celebrating Jewish holidays. Saludos to you guys. And I want to just, kind of recap some of the things that we're doing here. We don't have tons of time for calls, so I'm sorry for everybody on hold. But we will get to the rest of your calls, 833-482-5337. But we try to bring you, the most interesting live program we can, right? That brings you people that know what's going on with the actual breaking news of the day, the larger topics of the day, as well as, what's happening in popular culture and entertainment and stuff like that, like the Charlie Sheen stuff that we did earlier in the week. And we do that. Why? Because we can't end the week with all this slit your wrist misery stuff, right? that sometimes dominates the news cycle. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me, folks. I am Rich Valdez. I want to wish everybody a good weekend, and everybody that's sticking around, stick around. There's way more to come straight ahead. Best 3 hours in talk radio with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
And what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And I want to get into a bunch of things tonight. Of course, your phone calls, your comments, and thoughts and opinions. Our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. We are back with you for another hour. It is 7 minutes past the top of the hour. And Letitia James was indicted yesterday, and now the media is having a field day, right? The media is just trying to make it seem like they haven't done anything wrong. What she's done, everybody's done. And what's interesting about that is, while it's likely true, this is exactly what she prosecuted Trump for, making it seem like he was doing something outside of the ordinary. What's worse, he didn't do it, right? They totally mischaracterized everything that was going on, trying to make his property seem like it was worth less than it actually was. They said he tried to make it seem like it was worth more than he said it was worth. Bottom line, the media is, in my opinion, just as complicit as some of these unscrupulous lawyers that are committing the lawfare against President Trump and those in the MAGA world. And nobody really ever calls out the media, right? Because we can't, right? They have First Amendment rights. And listen, I know somebody right now is going, that Valdez, I can't stand this guy. He's part of the media, but he calls out the media. I've never really considered myself, and I identify as talk radio. Talk radio is, in my opinion, very different. I don't report the news; I comment on the news. I think it's a grand difference, and the reason it's a grand difference is because I'm not out there developing sources, trying to get a story and try to deliver what happened today and give you a fact-based account of what happened. I'm not. I'm trying to tell you what I think about the fact-based accounts that I hear. And I don't hear too many fact-based accounts, sadly, because the media, the legacy media, NPR, PBS, the rest of them, they do what they do. They make stuff up as they go along. And sadly, how could you not, right? How could you not criticize people that are just doing what they want to do? So sometimes you just got to call people out for what it is. And I want to spend some time talking about the media, the legacy media, and how they turn a blind eye to all sorts of things that are going on. Now, that was a mouthful. I wanted to get into a few things this evening. One of the things I wanted to talk about was President Trump, of course, being gifted a Nobel Peace Prize, not by the Nobel Committee. Nope, but by Maria Corina Machado. She dedicated her Nobel Prize to President Trump. Letitia James, of course, moving on, she says that this is not her fault. It's Trump's fault, right? This is his doing. He's the bad guy. This is his fault. I mean, the rhetoric here is, in my opinion, unbelievable. I think some people might buy it, but I think most people don't. Most people look at this and they're like, you know what? This is not good. Which cut are we talking about, Mr. Good? All right, yeah, let's go for it.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. His decision to fire a United States attorney who refused to bring charges against me and replace them with someone who is blindly loyal not to the law, but to the president, is antithetical to the bedrock principles of our country. I stand strongly behind my office's litigation against the Trump Organization. We conducted a 2-year investigation based on the facts and evidence, not politics. Judges have upheld the trial court's finding that Donald Trump, his company, and his 2 sons are liable for fraud.
Now, I played that cut yesterday when we were talking about Letitia James, and I'm playing it again. Why? Because I want to make fun of her yet again. Why? Because she's mastered something. What's that? I'll tell you. She's mastered the art of the promo, right? Of jobbing. She's like a professional wrestler, like WWE. She sounds like a wrestler. Like she's trying to call somebody out and I'm going to get Trump. And when I get him and Eric and Don Jr. in the ring, I'm going to give him the smackdown. I mean, it just sounds fake and phony and fraud to me. And she's not the only one that was indicted. You know who else was indicted? James Comey, right? Looking back at this week. And El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, who's now the 47th president, he posted something on Truth Social, and I thought it was terrific. Why? Because I love El Rushbo, right? El Rushbo, the Maharishi. He is the OG in this game. And before his death in 2017, he made some comments. And I got this clip sent to me by Mr. Producer from The Mark Levin Show. So shout out to my guy, Samantha, Mr. Producer himself. And I want you to listen to this, cut 13. Check it out.
How many of you have heard or thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican? I have. I've always thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican. I've been told that James Comey is a lifelong Republican. Turns out not to be true. Are you aware that James Comey used to be a communist? In a 2003 interview with New York Magazine, James Comey said before voting for Jimmy Carter in 1980, he'd been a communist. He admitted, I'd moved from communist to whatever I am now. Now, we know that John Brennan, Obama's CIA director, was a communist, or at least had voted for the Communist Party. But I had never heard this about Comey. Now we find out that under Obama, the CIA director and the FBI director both had histories of not just flirtation, but serious immersion into communism. And like the KGB always said, no one ever leaves the KGB. Nobody ever leaves this way of thinking.
Outstanding. Un aplauso for El Rushbo, Rush Limbaugh. God rest his soul. And let me tell you, he was nailing it right there, right? He spoke about the things that too many people were afraid to talk about. And sadly, back in 2017, maybe that was resonating. Today, you say, well, I feel like the general population, not people that listen to talk radio, but everybody else. You say communists and they go, well, what's so bad about that? And, we don't really have communists anymore. It's more like socialism. We don't really have revolutionaries anymore. Nobody's using violent overthrows anymore. This is the arguments that I hear. These are them. People come to me with the craziest things. They don't care about, they're perfectly willing and happy to accept government control, to accept a term that Mark Levin used in one of his books many years ago, the statists. And that's the best way to label them all, right? Because some of them are Marxists, some of them are socialists, some of them are prefer to be identified as comrade or communist, but they're all statists. They all believe in the power of the state, the almighty altar of the state. That's their God, that's their religion, that's what they believe. And this is what is ultimately hurting America. It's hurting our liberty. It's hurting our ability to live within the virtue that the founders intended. Because you've got these people that are looking to constantly subvert the truth that this country was established to be. And they prostitute this, right? They pervert it so that it's somehow other than what it's intended to be. They take liberty and they make it a bad thing. They make communism and they turn it into a good thing. This has to end. This can't be how this country continues because it wasn't designed as such. And it's not about evolution. It's not about making things better or things evolving or becoming new. It's about destroying something that was once functional, something that was once great, and in my opinion, hopefully will become great again. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, happy Friday, amigos. And check this out. A couple of nights ago, Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff over at the White House, was on CNN with Boris Sanchez, and they got into a little bit of a tit for tat because he didn't like the question, and he basically flat out called him out. Listen to this.
Is it the case that, as Pritzker frames it, you are profiling brown people, that this immigration crackdown is designed to go after people of color?
It's such a, oh, what a dumb question. The illegal aliens who are here are taking jobs away from blacks. They're taking jobs away from whites. They're taking jobs away from Latinos. They're taking their health benefits away. They're taking their school slots away. And of course, in many cases, they're committing heinous crimes. We cannot have a system of law in this country that privileges illegal aliens over American citizens. And that's what they're doing. You know it, and I know it.
So that's not exactly a no, Stephen. Can you just unequivocally
I just
state
said, well,
that the immigration
I said it's a dumb question. Okay.
Well, I appreciate
no,
that, but
and it's a dumb question.
So no, this policy is not designed.
I thought when I said it was a dumb question, it meant no.
Well, I just want to be clear and precise. I appreciate you trying to qualify my questions, but nevertheless,
No.
I think it's a fair one that a lot of people have.
My full answer is no. That is a lie, and it's a dumb question.
Now, I just want to be on the record saying, as the resident brown person here, I am marking myself safe yet again. I have not been stopped by ICE. I have not been harassed. I've not been attempted to be deported, not even in the least, not even when I speak Spanish loudly, not even when I defend the NFL's right to bring whichever artist they like, an artist who I don't support his communism, I don't support his liberalism, but I support his right to do whatever he wants in America and the NFL's right to do whatever they want in America, because you know what? This is America. And that's how it works. And even through all of that, I have not been deported or even attempted to be spoken to by ICE. Just, facetiously saying that. Now, of course, that was Boris Sanchez, who was trying to give a little bit of an attitude to Stephen Miller after he was told no time and again. I just want to clarify. I just want to be precise. I just want to. This is just one example of many that exist in the media today, of the media just really going off the deep end. And it's not just CNN. You've got NPR, you've got PBS, and so many others that are complicit in this same game. And that's why I want to bring in one of the pros. The executive editor of Newsbusters, Tim Graham, is with us. They're part of the Media Research Center. And I want to jump into this conversation. Tim Graham, welcome back.
Thank you.
So you heard the clip with Stephen Miller and our good friends at CNN, Boris Sanchez. What do you make of that?
This is CNN. I mean, the assumption is always Donald Trump and his minions are racists. I mean, that's where they go. So if J.B. Pritzker says they're just hunting down brown people, then that's the question. He's going to repeat that as the question. I think the answer was correct, which is when you deport illegal aliens, you are, to use the left wing's terms, you are privileging Americans, and Americans are of all colors. So I think that's the right answer. But, Boris Sanchez is just one of these people at CNN, and it doesn't matter if you're CNN, if you're black or white or Latino, you all do the same questions, which is the Democrats say you're fascists. What say you? Are you, and then to try to say, well, that wasn't a denial.
Right. It's funny. I use the same questions they have with my guests because to try and debunk and disprove all of their crazy, but yet they'll never use questions from the other side. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, this is what, and you can understand it. When we see the way that Nancy Pelosi acts when she gets an impertinent question, it doesn't even have to be a conservative question.
Yeah.
She doesn't quite go full Katie Porter. But
get the F out of my shot, Tim Graham.
Yeah, these people do not appreciate hard questions. They expect to be adored. They expect to be enabled. That's what they expect. They don't expect, both sides, let's be fair and balanced. Let's hold all the powerful accountable. That's not what they believe. These people believe in liberal privilege, and, they should be honored and adored as the saviors of democracy at all times, because Democrats and democracy are pretty much the whole thing in their book.
Yeah, they kind of have the monopoly on democracy, I should say. Anyway, I think you're right on that. Now, I want to talk about NPR, PBS, and the rest of these guys, because, they lost some money earlier this year, but it seems like they're still up to no good. Yes, well, we were so happy when the president and the Republicans defunded NPR and PBS. I got to say, I've been working on these networks since I started at the Media Research Center in 1989. So I've been doing this a long time, so it was very gratifying to see them defunded. But somebody said, well, what are you going to do next? I'm like, no, we're going to keep monitoring these guys. And so we looked at the guest list of PBS and NPR over the 2 months since they were defunded, from like July 18 to September 18, something like that. The guests on NPR was 53 liberals to 3 conservatives. And my public broadcasting researcher said, wow, that was a surprise to me. I said, it was not a surprise to me. I sort of hate listening to NPR during my commute. I've done it for years too. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great. You hear the craziest things on there.
They do not really have Republicans and conservatives on. They have a lot of liberal journalists.
I've never even heard Adam Kinzinger on there or Liz Cheney.
The fake conservatives. We were so generous that when they had a debate between someone supporting the state of Israel and somebody supporting Hamas, we counted the Israel supporter as a conservative, because that's kind of where we are, unless you're Tucker Carlson. So I think that the PBS number we found in those 2 months was 98 to 21. So, they're the fair and balanced ones when they're only 5-1 left, as opposed to 17-1. But I mean, this is the way they are day in and day out. They are there to offer propaganda, to do one-sided things. And one of the things that really annoys me is PBS and NPR are both the type of networks who get cranky when it's possible that other networks might move 2 ticks to the center. So they're both doing angry stories now on CBS might become mega,
Right, so, they have a new editor-in-chief there.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that somebody said, we're going to hold both sides accountable. Well, that's mega. It is.
Yeah. Tim Graham, stick with me. We're going to come back. I got a couple more clips I want you to hear to get your reaction regarding the media bias that's going on today. And, of course, amigos, if you're listening, we're still live. We're still national. The phone number is 833-482-5337. It's Rich Valdez coming right back with Tim Graham. Don't go anywhere.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to it.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And we're talking about the media, bias within the media. And something that I find really interesting is this. This has been going on for a long time. Like, back when TV wasn't as big as it is today, cable networks and whatnot, you had the Washington Post, where democracy dies in darkness, right? And Bob Woodward was on with none other than Joe Scarborough, right? And what a team, right? A dynamic duo, Bob Woodward and Joe Scarborough on MSNBC, or whatever it's called now, MS Now. And this is fascinating because when you get people like that together, There's only one logical conclusion they can come to, right? Watergate, the Holocaust, right? They find whatever they can in history to say Trump's somehow worse than any of those things. Listen to this.
You changed journalism with your Watergate reporting. Compare what's going on now. I know you've been asked this question a good bit, but the facts have changed on the ground over the past 2 weeks. Compare what happened during Watergate, during Nixon's abuses, with the President of the United States telling the Attorney General, I want you to arrest these 3 people. They're guilty.
Hold on a second. So we got Joe Scarborough saying, things have changed on the ground. What has changed in the past 2 weeks? What are the facts that have changed on the ground in the past 2 weeks that you want to compare what happened to Watergate? What is he talking about? These are the things, these concoctions of the left that really just boggle the mind, right? During this, I'm reading the transcript. During Nixon's abuses with the president of the United States telling the Attorney General, I want you to arrest these 3 people. They're guilty as hell. Saying that Trump did this because he posted an opinion on Truth Social. I don't see the correlation, but hey, maybe I'm blind to the truth. Let her rip.
Guilty as hell.
Well, it's worse now, and of course, after 2 years of Watergate, Nixon resigned. We are now at a deadlock period, and it's even worse than that. I mean, I think we have really reached the point where Trump has destabilize the government so it can't function normally, and in that this period of destabilization, it's everyone is going to, as I say, use the power they have and also stick to their talking points. If they can stick to their talking points, they satisfy the base.
Wow, Bob Woodward, I thought you were smart once. This wasn't a very smart response. The whole question, the question was bad. The setup was bad. I want to get one of the pros to weigh in here. We've got Tim Graham, the executive editor of Newsbusters over at the MRC, is with us, newsbusters.org. Tim Graham, when you hear Bob Woodward together with Joe Scarborough and all of this, in my opinion, nonsense that they're talking, what's your initial reaction to that?
Well, you have to laugh when they start talking about, well, they have their talking points for their base. This is on MSNBC. I mean, is there a network that hammers talking points for their base more than the Nicole Wallace, Joe Scarborough network? The Joe Scarborough didn't hit any talking points like, this is the best Biden ever, I think what they're trying to talk about here is that grand juries in Virginia indicted James Comey. They indicted Letitia James, and they're very, very upset about that. And then they pretend that this is to go at Woodward's pace, destabilizing. I swear, he's easy to transcribe when you're a media analyst because he does about 2 words a minute. Look, Biden had assigned a special counsel named Jack Smith to get Trump, right? And the networks were like, CNN was like, oh, we went to the subway with Jack Smith, and he got a foot long. He is like Elliot Ness. I mean, they're just...
That's terrific. You're right. They can't help but pander. But to me, it's laughable, and I think most people can see through it, or is that just me?
No, I think a lot of people see through it, which is why so many Americans do not trust the press. I think that most Americans recognize that the so-called mainstream media isn't mainstream, and the reporting isn't reporting. You can open the New York Times or read the front page, and the so-called reporting is Trump pooped on democracy again today. It's about that level of invective. It's not reporting the way you would understand it. Like, let's assemble the facts into a rational pattern. Everything comes larded with this editorial about democracy dying. So that's it's annoying. But the beautiful thing about these indictments, and we have no idea whether they're going to succeed or whether they're going to be thrown out of court or whatever. What we know is you can totally look at the Exhibit A and the Exhibit B. They presented James Comey as a hero. You know, George Stephanopoulos did a prime time special on how precious James Comey was to America. You know, so when you're being hailed in a primetime special by George Stephanopoulos, you might be a Democratic tool. You know, and so Letitia James elected as a Democrat on a promise of, I'm going to get Trump. Well, the news media, every time she went after Trump, would say she presented her as a nonpartisan. She was not described as a Democrat. Today, in the story in the New York Times about her indictment, she was not described as a Democrat. She was described as a Trump foe, but, you know, they can't acknowledge that what she was up to, what Jack Smith was up to, what Fani Willis was up to, what Alvin Bragg was up to, they were all about getting Trump, ruining him, ruining his business, ruining his political career, ruining him in general, putting him in jail. But
Tim Graham,
somehow,
so many people seem to lose sight that these guys are all on the same team. They're all Democrats. I feel like not enough noise is made about that. What do you think?
well, we're the noise makers, you know.
Right.
Look, what we try to do in every news cycle is say, here's what they're doing. You know, here are the tactics they're using. And if it's dishonest, we'll call it out. Now, sometimes you get surprised. You get up in the morning and they're like, they seem to like that Trump got a peace deal. I don't know what to do with this. It must be a weird day when Trump gets praised. But that's not the normal. The normal is, Trump's ending democracy again today. Go
ahead.
I was just going to say, he got elected. Democracy flourished because he was elected.
Exactly, right. It was democracy in action, in my opinion. Now, Tim Graham, everybody that's listening, you made a valiant point, I thought, which was we are the noisemakers. And I believe not only you guys at MRC Newsbusters, but I think we, the resistance, right? We, the Americans, the patriots that care about what's happening. And those that want to become more informed and be better equipped with the research and the quips and so many other things that you guys put together at Newsbusters, at MRC, what do you recommend our listeners do? Where do you send them? Where should they go?
Well, yes, newsbusters.org is a great place to start. I'm going to tell anybody who's concerned about bias in the media to have a broad diet of media. You know, if you don't want to read the liberal media yourself, you can get our summaries of it. Watch live coverage or watch C-SPAN coverage, because then you can play this game of, well, how is this going to, be covered? Will there not be a story on it at all? I found it fascinating tonight that NBC came out and told you how badly the stock market did today after Trump threatened China. The S&P 500 has hit several record highs in this month. NBC didn't cover those. And those little patterns. It's like, oh, interesting.
Right.
They did it again.
Now, newsbusters.org is the flagship. Tell us, is there anywhere else that people should be going, social media, anything like that?
Well, I mean, obviously, sites like X, you get to see so many videos from people. Some clips of liberal bias in the news media, but often, let's say, for example, on the ground camera work from Portland, from the streets of Portland, from the streets of Chicago. That sort of thing, again, where you're saying, oh, there are things happening in this country that they refuse to show us, And when Antifa is scaring up the streets, the weirdos on TV news come on and say, Antifa is merely an idea.
Right, it's fake, it's not real.
Which is the weirdest thing ever. I mean, what a ridiculous lie. That's what they want you to think. So if the radical leftists who bring violence to the streets want you to think they're just an idea, why would our so-called mainstream media be helping them out? Mainstream media likes Antifa? Well, that would seem to make their title look kind of stupid.
Yeah. Tim Graham, Executive Director of Newsbusters. I want to thank you for being with us, and I also want to encourage everybody to follow you and check out the work they're doing at newsbusters.org. Tim Graham, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for staying up late with us. Godspeed.
Oh, thanks, Rich. You bet.
You bet. My pleasure. And amigos, we come back. Your thoughts, your calls, your reactions. Arkansas, Idaho, New York, California, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You have given us the voice of hope. You give us hope, and we thank you so much for that. You make things seem brighter.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Finally, they got the girlfriend of one of the founders of Antifa. You understand? There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa. This is no different than if they announced they rounded up a dozen Decepticons. We've captured the Chupacabra, everyone.
I like the Chupacabra part of the joke, right? The Chupacabra was the imaginary blood-sucking goat alien thing in Puerto Rico. And at many times in my life, I have been referred to or have become the La Chupacabra. So I am the Chupacabra of late night radio. Welcome back, America. Rich Valdez keeping you company. And we're going to get to your calls momentarily. But Jimmy Kimmel, that was Jimmy Kimmel you just heard. He says, there is no Antifa. It's entirely imaginary. But yet there's all those people with black masks and mace bottles and going at it with federal law enforcement in Oregon and in some other areas. Yet there is no Antifa. I want to get your thoughts, calls, and reactions on what's going on with law enforcement and how we fix these problems. Let's go to Joe, Salem, Arkansas, KSAR. Joe, go right ahead.
Thank you, Rich. Boy, I'm getting really full of hearing about how the cops, of course, if the locals can't handle it, and then it has to be the FBI and ICE and the feds. The ICE are all there; they're doing their job, and the sheriff's supposed to kind of control that. But all of these problems, large city or small community, can be what the Mid-South all does is we have volunteers ready to go, neighborhood watch people, posse comitatus. That, by the way, that's a Latin phrase for power of the county or power of the people. And that was the intended remedy for any civil strife at all as America grew. Nobody, I didn't hear Mr. Lott is very knowledgeable. I used to listen to him on gun shows, but I didn't hear him mention posse comitatus. The sheriffs are willing to do that, but they frown on it because of liability problems. Well, we're past that point. You get about 20% of the whole community that will be non-felon, calm-headed, good with their weapons, and they can be there, all have pagers, just like the fire department, and show up, and these people will settle down, I promise you, because they see all kinds of people in the law and all kinds of people they know carrying guns. Oh, boy, I know him. He's part of the posse. Now, this is a problem. They think, the people I know around Chicago, they said, well, we got all these guys coming in here looking like hoodlums, with masks and all this. Well, yeah, you know why. And they could protect the ICE, too. The posse could, so until they get their job done. So I wish Judge Jeanine would calm down President Trump, because he's getting in the wrong lane. That case that's before him, I don't know that he's going to win that on Chicago. Go ahead.
No, which case? Where?
Well, there was a 2-week hold up on letting them go on in there.
Oh, for National Guard?
Yeah. Yeah, that's National Guard. That's another problem. He can't call up the National Guard. That's an act of Congress, and it has to be for insurrection, rebellion. It's in Article 1 there, rebellion, war, and so on. And he keeps talking about, I may call an insurrection. Well, that's just going to make it worse, and he can't do that. Congress does it, and then he's commander-in-chief of all militia, which used to be militia, now it's the Guard. And in order for him to use them, it used to be state guard, and now it is federalized. So it's national. And I agree. Look, a lot of what he's doing is great, but he's pushing the envelope, and we're going to get into a whole...
I think there's a little difference here, because I see this a little bit differently. My perspective here is there is the Insurrection Act of 1807, and this is what I think President Trump, it's what President Bush, the senior, used during the L.A. riots for Rodney King. It's what President Trump has at his disposal as well. And this is unique to the president, right? The only person that can make use of the Insurrection Act is the president. It's literally the president's power to nationally deploy the U.S. military and, federalize the National Guard units. It's not something that Congress can do in that capacity. It's solely the responsibility of the president under the Insurrection Act. So I think that this is what he's talking about doing. And he can do and has done, and he did it in Los Angeles earlier this year, and he can do it again. I think they push back and they go to court and all sorts of things, but ultimately he can do these things if he deems this a insurrection. I don't know that it's problematic. I think it's going to cause some waves. Right? It's going to make problems with the left. It's going to make problems with the media. That is a given. But I think it's well within his power, and I don't think he's afraid to do it. At least that's my thought. Brother, I want to thank you for your call. I got to take a quick pause here, but we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Anyway, looking at a piece in Politico, and the Trump team is pretty confident that the administration is going to prevail in court after federal judges blocked the White House's efforts to send troops to Oregon because they said the president's move lacked legal basis. But that's not what the administration believes. And I tend to find that they typically do well. Now, Will Chamberlain, he's with the Article 3 Project, and quote from him, he says, to be frank, if somebody wants 20-1 odds that this temporary restraining order would survive Supreme Court review, I'd give it to them. And he says that's how strongly I think this is doomed to be reversed. So I think that Trump is going to be all right. Why? And that's why, because he can do this anyway with the invocation of the Insurrection Act of 1807. So I don't think he's in the wrong here. I think it's just like everything else. They give him a hard way to go, and he's going to have to jump through a couple of hoops, or at least wait until, his lawyers jump through the hoops. That's sadly how it works out from time to time. Amigos, we continue the conversation straight ahead. We've got another hour to go. It's Friday night before we kick off the weekend. You know the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to talk about the energy crisis in New Jersey, of all places. Things have tripled in Jersey. You don't want that coming to your state. So make sure you keep it locked right here. We're going to discuss that, plus all of your calls, open phones across America. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? It's Rich Valdez back for another hour. We're 7 minutes past the top of the hour this Friday night, live and national. Looking forward to hearing from everybody all across America. You know the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And on this Friday night, I would love to say there's a ton of things going on, but there isn't a ton of things, right? It's the same news as it's been the last few days, except the big story. Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado from Venezuela. She's the opposition leader there, trying to oust Maduro. And she actually won a Nobel Peace Prize and has given it to El Jefe, El Presidente Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. She says that he has offered decisive support. And I believe that's accurate. She says for freedom, I would argue that not only for freedom, but for peace. And the quote that came out on X was, "I dedicate this prize to the suffering people of Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support of our cause," she wrote on Twitter. And good for her, right? Good for her, because the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, they fumbled, right? They didn't. They, despite the nominations from people all over the world, they ignored El Trompito Donaldus Magnus. And I think that's messed up, because what did they do towards peace? Not as much as him, right? And I don't mean her. I mean them, the committee themselves. Anyway, she went on to say right here, "We are on the threshold of victory, and today more than ever we count on President Trump, the people of the United States, the peoples of Latin America, and the democratic nations of the world as our principal allies to achieve freedom and democracy. I dedicate this prize to the suffering of people in Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support of our cause." That was the first part of that quote. And this is great, right? Now the article goes on to say Trump has coveted the prize. I don't think he's coveting the prize. I think he's simply pointing out the fact that he should win one. I agree with him. I don't know if he wants the prize. I don't think he's asking for the prize. I think he's just saying, if anybody's getting one, I should get one. And I'll join him in saying that. I think that's accurate. I mean, when you have somebody that has successfully brokered a bunch of ceasefires and ended several wars, I mean, what else do you need? Now, I guess in defense of the committee, they're basing this on 2024, and he himself mentions that he's running for president in 2024. So, you know, maybe in the 2025 edition of this award, I think we might see El Trompito on that list. So I'm not selling him out just yet. I think he's going to do a good job, but I'm very happy that Ms. Machado from Venezuela decided to dedicate this to President Trump, because I think that's it's nice, it's fair, it's cool, good for her. You know, I mean, I think that dedicating it to the people of her country, also very classy. It's the right thing to do. So good on all of them, honestly, and happy that that went that way. That, you know, she did the right thing. Let me see. There was something else I wanted to talk about. Now, of course, President Trump taking heat today. Why? China. Now, he's threatened a 100% tariff on China starting November 1st. The president said that export controls on critical software will also take effect on November 1st. This is a threat that he's making directly to China's President Xi, and this is a big deal. 100% tariffs on Chinese goods and export controls on critical software starting November 1st. It's a mouthful. I could barely say it. Just imagine what the effect that it's going to have. Now, Trump accused Beijing of adopting aggressive export controls on nearly all of their products, referring to the Chinese regime's recent rule changes, saying that they're aimed at restricting shipments of rare earth elements. And in a Truth Social post earlier, he said that the United States will impose a tariff of 100% on China over and above any tariff that they are currently paying. Also, on November 1st, we will impose export controls on any and all critical software. So President Trump isn't trying to play games here, right? He's trying to be aggressive, trying to get straight to the point. I think you have to be that way, especially with adversaries like China. And Trump warned that tariffs could be implemented sooner, depending on Beijing's reaction. He also said China's export controls, which would affect all countries, appeared to be a strategy devised by Beijing some years ago. Let me see, saying, quote, "It is impossible to believe that China would have taken such an action, but they have, and the rest is history." Good for you, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus. This is why I appreciate having President Trump on deck. He doesn't waste time once he sees that the path forward isn't going the way he expected. He figures out how to pivot very quickly. You need people like that, people that can figure things out, people that are good strategists, people that have a plan, people that have vision. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's that. Now, I wanted to share a story with you. My brother came to visit me some hours ago, and an old friend who you've heard on this program, my buddy Ruben, he's Cuban, came from Havana, Cuba, to Key West, Florida, on a jet ski. 5-hour ride, ran out of gasoline. They brought some gasoline with them in a tire inner tube and had to fill up, in the middle of the ocean. There's an overnight trip, and they, they rode through the darkness of night. He often said he didn't believe that they were going to make it because they couldn't see where they were going. But the driver of the jet ski had a Garmin global positioning system to go on that 90-mile ride. And it got them where they had to go. And I think it's, these types of things, when you watch people like that. My brother was born in Bayamón, Puerto Rico. And Ruben was born in Cuba. And you look at the interaction between these guys. And one is, my brother's very pro-Trump. Ruben, not pro-Trump at all, rather anti-Trump. And watching them go at it is just so humorous to me. So I spent a couple hours earlier tonight watching that spectacle. And it made me think about how we are able to do it very respectfully, very comically in many ways. But there are people all over the country that are, taking these types of disagreements over politics or ideology extraordinarily seriously, where it's like, I can't be your friend if you don't agree with me. I can't be friends with people that, do this or do that. And I'm not talking about smoking crack or, working as a prostitute. I'm saying simple things that we shouldn't be holding against people. I think, really, and I hate to sound like Gandhi over here, but I think we oftentimes should celebrate the fact that we're not the same. Who wants to be in lockstep with anybody? To me, that sounds like a road to collectivism that I'm just not that interested in. But it doesn't change the fact that we still have to do what we do, right? Everybody's got to show up and do what they're expected to do. And irrespective of your politics or political differences. And I feel like we put too much emphasis on the differences and not enough on the fact that we're all just trying to make it in life, right? We're all trying to do our best. We're all trying to get ahead. We're all trying to make it happen, Captain. And I think that's what it's really all about, at least in my opinion. So anyway, I want to get your opinions. I see we have some calls from New York and from other places. I'll give you the number one more time, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And straight ahead, we're going to talk about the energy crisis in New Jersey. What is going on? Why are bills double, and in some cases more than double what they were? And many people are seeing a 20 and 30% increase on their energy bills if they're not seeing double. And that is problematic. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Day one as governor, I'm declaring a state of emergency on utility costs.
Democrat Mikey Sherrill in a helicopter and Republican Jack Ciattarelli at a diner in recent ads focusing on New Jersey's rising utility costs.
Come on. What does the president have to do with rising property taxes and higher electricity bills?
Many tell us it's been difficult keeping up with electrical bills, that PSE&G says it increased by 17% in June. This customer also relies on solar.
We've already gone up at least 39%.
At least $100. This is ridiculous.
We're hardworking, and it's just really
not fair.
This couple says they had to cut back on food to stay cool.
The AC was running 24/7, and the house, we have high ceilings.
PSE&G says the hike driven by PJM's high-capacity market prices. That organization operates the regional electric transmission grid. PSE&G says, quote, it's working with the state on long-term solutions, including the need for more power generation to meet increasing demand.
So that's just a little bit of what's going on in New Jersey. And I think it's just wild how much energy prices have gone up in New Jersey, and it seems pretty unique to New Jersey. And I think that's because they the way it's done, when people don't pay their bill, it kind of gets socialized. At least the interest part of it, really just wild stuff, and people end up paying through the nose. And I want to get to the bottom of this with our guest. Sam Romain is with us, and we're going to talk about energy in New Jersey. He's the chairman of Americans for Energy Dominance, and he's with us now. Sam, welcome.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for staying up late and having this discussion with us. And I find this whole thing remarkable. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, but I live in New Jersey. I live in Bergen County, and I see my PSE&G bill go up and up and up, and I'm thinking, they're trying to push just every last person they can out of New Jersey. At least that's how it seems to me.
No, it's true. The utility bills in New Jersey are some of the highest rate hikes we've seen across the country, only behind D.C. itself and barely behind D.C. We're talking, on average 20%. And most people in New Jersey are actually blaming the utility company. A lot of people are blaming the governor himself. But at the end of the day, we know that this issue has become front and center of this campaign. And it's really going to come down to, in my opinion, whoever has the best solution here might actually take the win on the next governorship here. And when you listen to the debate, I'm not sure if you listened to that, this idea of putting a price freeze on and calling an emergency order, I don't even know if that's possible, and I'm not sure it's even a solution. There's a lot of problems to be had, but I don't know where you want to start on this, but we could go back to the very beginning.
Yeah, we can go there. To me, that sounds like a socialist price control, something that the government should never be able to do. But they do have to do something, right? Because things are kind of runaway spending or runaway rates on behalf of the energy companies and the way that they're dealing with that. And I think some of it has to do with in my opinion, the poor policy that the state has on, coming from the division of the Rate Council, which I think is just absurd. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it is a policy thing. This is absolutely a policy thing. And this is what happens when you have, honestly, democratically controlled states and governorships for so long. And so let's rewind a little bit back. So under the Biden administration, you saw states and utility companies mandating this carbon-free initiative. Basically, the way utility companies work is they get a guaranteed return on equity. So basically, the more money they spend, the more profit they get to make, guaranteed, which means they get to pass that on to the ratepayer, you and I, right? And so when you have a top-down green mandate, the utility says, oh, no, please don't make me do this. And they go spend billions of dollars, which they get to put on to you to go build these massive solar farms, wind farms, whatever it might be. And then so that doesn't help. That's kind of the start of the problem. And you still have in New Jersey a green 100% free carbon mandate by 2050. They're working on 50% by 2030. That's not gone away. That's one of the first things we need to get out of that mandate, get out of this RGGI policy and start there. But the problem doesn't end there. What's happened from there is that we now have this AI boom happening across the country. And, love it or hate it, AI data centers are coming to America. And in my opinion, we need them to compete with China. I'd rather have an American sentient AI versus a Chinese one, right? So we need to figure out how we coexist, how we power these data centers, but they've exacerbated this problem. But going back to the policy issue, there's a lot of really interesting things that have happened. And we're going to go back in time real quick if you got a minute here. So back in 2018, the state legislature actually passed, I don't like the name of it, but the Clean Energy Act. And basically what it did was it said, all of these residential battery systems, which are great systems, by the way, all these residential battery systems that are already privately owned in the marketplace, already privately installed on people's home, giving them power for backups and outages, hurricanes, you name it. we're going to network these batteries together. And so when the grid is experiencing this peak demand, we can discharge these batteries when they're not otherwise being used, do some peak shaving on the grid, compensate the asset owner, the battery owner, which would be you and me or your neighbor, and we're going to create this program. And just for reference, Texas has this program. Many other states have this program very successfully. This is in 2018 that this was mandated to get done. It never got done. And so we're 6 years later under a democratically controlled legislature, under a Democrat governor, and they can't even do their own green energy mandate. Now, I'm not kicking the program, but you'd think that the party of the green movement would actually get some of this stuff done, and they're not. And so we just can't bring on generation fast enough, given these mandates, given these AI data center issues, and the solutions that were bipartisanly agreed to, they're now dragging their feet. And bear with me real quick, Rich, is that there's one other thing.
Yeah.
Permitting in New Jersey, I'm not sure if you're too familiar, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing to get a permit, right? Just this last session, get this, there was a bipartisan bill that would actually move the state towards automated permitting. And the governor's sitting on it, not signing it, and is rumored that he might even veto it, which would take permits from 30, 60, 90 days to 24 hours, and we're just going to veto it in a time that we need to solve the energy problem. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like Governor Murphy's working overtime to try and hand this election over to Jack Ciattarelli, and I couldn't be happier about it. Amigos, we're on with our guest, and he is a pro, Sam Romaine. He knows exactly what's going on. I was going to say he knows where the bodies are buried, but kind of does when it comes to energy, right? Chairman of Americans for Energy Dominance. Check out their website, americansforenergydominance.com. And Sam, when we come back, I want you to just give me a couple of quick points on this conversation. I'm sure by now you've heard it's a clip from New Jersey 101.5, Eric Scott, along with Brian Lipman from the Office of the Rate Council, just talking about how they structure the policy around late payments and non-payment and how that gets passed on to the ratepayers in a socialized manner. That really blew me away, and I think most people that hear it are just like, really? There's no way that's legal, but that's actually happening. So, amigos, you keep it locked right here. We're coming right back with Sam Romaine, chairman of Americans for Energy Dominance, and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
Didn't think that there was anything else in this issue that could shock me more than what you just said. Seriously.
The utility wants you to get that help because at the end of the day, the utility needs their bill to be paid. They don't care if you pay it, if the government pays it, if LIHEAP pays it. As I understand it, the individual ratepayer is not collecting interest on it. What the utility does is it says, I didn't collect $10,000 this month. So I have to carry that. And they put interest on that then is socialized to all ratepayers. So yes, they're getting interest, but it's not.
Wait. They socialize that to all ratepayers. So in other words, if there's individuals that can't pay their bill, they don't get a shutoff notice, but everybody else then pays the interest on their unpaid bill?
Oh, it's better than that. If they don't pay their bill, the utility still can put that into what's called an uncollectible fund, and then they get the uncollectibles from the ratepayers who are paying their bills. So this is another reason why we need to help our ratepayers, because the more ratepayers who can't pay their bill, the higher the rates will go up for everybody else.
Again, that is Brian Lipman, the Office of the Rate Counsel for the state of New Jersey, along with Eric Scott on New Jersey 101.5. And one listens to that, at least I listen to that, and I say, wow, that is obscene. How is that even legal? How is that happening? I don't have the answer to it, but Sam Romain could weigh in on that. He's chairman of Americans for Energy Dominance. Sam, what say you?
Well, I don't know this specific issue in that much detail. What I can tell you is that this uncollectible accounts program, it's not completely unique to New Jersey. There is another state that does it. You're going to love it. It's California. They also do it. And what they do is basically they have a giant pot of money. I'm going to very oversimplify this, so bear with me. But all the money that can't get collected, they build it into the rate case, and that becomes a part of your next rate hike. Now, what's unique about New Jersey is that you have about $200 million, roughly dollars, I think the number is, of uncollectible accounts. And you'd think that, that California also does this. It's probably significantly larger than New Jersey, given the size of the state. It's actually not. California is only $300 million of uncollectible accounts. So you do have in my opinion, a large proportion of uncollectible accounts. It does kind of get rolled over. But Rich, I mean, here's my thing about utility companies. They're not looking out for me and you and your listeners. They're not. Yeah. And so what I champion at Americans for Energy Dominance is actually just going off grid. And in a lot of places you can't legally do that, which blows a lot of people's minds. But why play this game of subsidizing other people's bills they can't pay? Why play this game where the corporate monopolies get to gouge you whenever they want? I'm a huge advocate of doing solar and battery and just kind of doing my own thing and doing my own self-generation. And just getting off of that cycle where you're always going to be down and out with a utility company. But yes, I mean, to your point of the subsidized system, it does exist. And not in all states. In states like Texas and Florida, they don't do that.
Yeah, thank God. Now, Sam Romain, places like Texas that, has had some, in recent years, some energy issues when they've had difficult weather. How does the situation differ there than, say, New Jersey?
Yeah, Texas is an interesting state. Again, oversimplified in a general sense, but you kind of have three big grids in the United States. You got the East Coast, you got the West Coast, and then you got Texas, right? And they do things differently. They have a deregulated utility market, which is a beautiful thing because the free market gets to do free market things. And the other thing about Texas is that they have really, truly embraced an all of the above energy solution. And so they have the lowest chance of blackouts, the lowest chance of brownouts. They have some of the most stable prices in the entire country, and they are being rewarded by massive inflow of advanced manufacturing companies, AI data centers, and of course they have the land to do this as well, but they don't have the energy crisis that we're seeing in other states because they just said, look, if it's an electron, we want it. Electrons don't have red, blue, green, purple, whatever. Power is power, and we know, given the course of history, that energy abundance is human abundance. And so it's not a matter of, is oil better than nuclear? Is nuclear better than solar? They said, use the right tool for the right job. Natural gas plants, nuclear, coal, those are all amazing base load technologies. Even coal, there's some cool coal technologies. They're all great for base load power. But you don't want to build base load to maximize, to reach the peak level. You have to have peaker plants and base load plants. It's just how the entire thing works, right? And so they said, okay, let's build our base load for what we know we're going to need, and let's use these intermittent power sources with some batteries so we can have dispatchable solar so we can cover our peak and then go back to the base. And Texas just did it right from the start. They didn't over-politicize it. They launched the programs. If you want to get a permit to go residential solar in Texas, you're not waiting 3 months like you are in New Jersey. You're waiting 24 hours in most cases. At worst, maybe 5 or 7. The other thing, remember that battery program I was telling you about? In 2018, New Jersey launches a battery program, still not live to this day. Texas, they said, we want to do a battery program, launched and successful in less than 9 months. And for every dollar that is being invested into their virtual power plant program, they're seeing $2 of return on it. So they launch a program in 9 months, and it's profitable because they just cut the red tape. They said, don't politicize this. Every electron, use the right tool for the right job. Just because I have a hammer, not everything's a nail. Let's get this done. And they're doing very well. They have more energy than any other state and the lowest chance of blackout. And they're ready for what's to come with AI and data centers, you name it.
So the small government free market approach wins again. Sam Romaine. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Sam Romaine is the chairman of Americans for Energy Dominance, AmericansForEnergyDominance.com. Sam, let everybody know how they can follow you online.
I'm most active on X, definitely in the conservative media space. So it's Sam_Romaine, Romain. Based out of Florida, great state of Florida. Travel around helping states figure out how to free market their grid and try and overcome some of these rising prices.
Outstanding. Well, keep up the good work. I appreciate you sticking around with us, staying up late and keeping us up to speed on what's going on with the energy crisis in Jersey and telling us how the grids work in Texas. Free markets, again, reign supreme. Sam Romaine, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Good night.
And amigos, yes, good night to you. We continue with your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue. And guess what? It's Friday night, and the government is still shut down, just like it is every Saturday and every Sunday. Now, listen, I like you, I want to make sure people in federal law enforcement get paid and people in the military get paid. But I also know that the old saying, money is the mother's milk of politics. I think that's better said. Government spending of your tax dollars is the mother's milk of the Democrat Party. And ultimately, while yes, some families get caught in the middle, I'm not saying that they're not, and I'm not saying that they should. But ultimately, who you hurt the most with the government shutdown is the Democrats. I don't know if you've seen Hakeem Jeffries. I don't know if you've seen this clip of him on CNBC getting shredded by the two hosts on CNBC, which is, financial network, that were basically saying, look, you're trying to undo everything that they did in the big, beautiful bill for your own benefit because you couldn't stop them from passing the bill. And that's not cool. And now you're saying that they're shutting down the government and that it's not a clean CR and whatnot. And he just became very petulant. He was very ready to fold his arms and just pout. And sadly, this is what we're dealing with Hakeem Jeffries and his partner in crime, Chuck Schumer. I want to get your thoughts on that and everything else that's going on. Let's go to the phones. Bob is calling us from Riverhead, New York. WJJF. Bob, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Rich, people are getting tight, but I think I got this Fed shutdown figured out. See, D.C. stands for don't care, and Washington is where they launder a ton of our money.
Oh, yeah.
So we just got to wait for the laundromat attendants to finish the spin cycle and dry and fold the money. Laundry. So what's the worry? It's Marvelous Veronica and the M&M boys of the Could.
Listen, I think we've learned that was true during the Doge Committee's work, where Elon Musk basically uncovered that we were just a big clearinghouse of money getting, you can call it laundered, you can just call it, passing through hands. But sadly, we did too much of that. And now I think people are just really upset that things are coming to an end in some ways, right? I don't think it totally drains the swamp, but man, what a beating they've taken. And kudos to President Trump for pulling it off and everybody who worked with him on that. But I think that you're right. They are definitely the people in Washington. This is what they do, right? They are there to make sure that they're spending and spending and spending. It's the only business in the world. I don't know what you do for a living, Bob, but most people, they don't go ahead and say, well, last year we spent $1 million, so we've got to at least spend $1 million this year or we won't get that again in our budget. Now, some businesses are like that, but by and large, I think most businesses operate by an actual bottom line. Last year might have been a good year, maybe might have been a crappy year, and maybe you're headed into a really big year. You have to deal with reality, with the actual numbers that you have, not just this figment of one's imagination. And I think this is what Washington does, and that's why we're in the shape we're in. We don't pay attention to reality. We just inflate things and say, sure, let's go with that inflated number. So, yeah, very poignant point. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the call. And before I move on to any other calls, I just want to say, this is Hakeem Jeffries, right? Now he's saying that Republicans are praying, and I don't mean like to the Lord. He's talking about like predators, P-R-E-Y, that Republicans are preying on the American people, and that this is his attempt to save health care. Listen to this.
Unfortunately, what we're dealing with right now in the United States Congress is a group of people who we sometimes say they go to church and they pray on Sunday. But then they come to Washington, D.C., and they pray, P-R-E-Y, on the American people for the rest of the week. Pray on the poor, pray on the sick, pray on the afflicted. But we believe in an America of the people, by the people, and for the people, which is why we're standing up for the health care of the American people.
Let me tell you, you're in bad shape when we're talking about a government shutdown that Republicans have made very clear is because they're trying to undo a provision in the big, beautiful bill that said that they would not fund programs that included illegal aliens. This is a big sticking point for that bill, and that's currently in their wish list for the continuing resolution, the CR, which Republicans contend is clean, and they say is not because that provision isn't there. And it's remarkable how now he's flipping this around, saying that Democrats are standing up for Americans and their health care while Republicans are predatory. And I don't even think this argument makes sense, right? I think most people that see this realize Congress isn't doing anything to help anyone. They're just trying to reopen the government if they can, and if they can undo what they did, the Democrats at least, if they can undo what the Republicans did, and really it's bipartisan, I think, what was done in the big, beautiful bill. And that is remarkable, right? It really is remarkable that they're doing it. But it's not the first time we've seen them do these things where they say one thing, they do another, and they do it right in your face. I think we saw that with the January 6th committee, right? They were making it seem like we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to do this. We're going to give the benefit of the doubt. None of that happened, right? The whole thing, literally, that was like a witch hunt, an actual like fake, phony, fraud type of trial. It was just amazing to see, They picked all the people, and yeah, we got Republicans. We got Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Great. What a time to be alive, really. What a time to be alive. Anyway, I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to come back and to the rest of your calls. We've got our friends from Vermont, our friends from Chicago, Illinois. 833-482-5337 is the phone number. Of course, if you missed any of the interviews we've done this evening or even this week, I always like to encourage everybody to go check out the website, richvaldez.com. That's Valdez with an S at the end, richvaldez.com. You can listen to today's episode in about an hour after we finish broadcasting. You also have all the other episodes that we aired through the week. You can stream them right from the website, or you can download them right to your podcast app, stream them from there, from Spotify or Apple Music or however you listen to podcasts. And I encourage you to, A, share with some people that may appreciate the perspective, but B, many of you have left a 5-star review, and I want to thank you for that, because those 5-star reviews, they go a long way. And I really do appreciate it. So thank you for everyone who's listening for your support of the podcast version of this show, as well as for your reviews and your ratings and kind words. Much, much appreciated. RichValdez.com is the website. And, of course, our phone number, coming straight back, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. To the phones we go. I want to go to Art calling us from Illinois on 890 WLS. Art, go right ahead.
Thank you, Rich, for taking my phone call. And some so-called conservatives or America First, they got bent out of shape, but Trump helped a little bit to Israel, but they don't seem to mind that, America is so much entangled with NATO, and it can really lead to World War III with Russia. I think we need to stop at NATO entanglement, disband NATO in exchange for Russia ending the war in Ukraine before it really gets out of, it creates like World War III with nuclear attack and all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen because I think that was President Trump's initial thought, right? I think he became president. He went down there and he was like, "Hey, you guys aren't paying your fair share. We're going to pull out of this. We don't need to be messing with you people. We don't need your security. We could protect ourselves. It's Russia you're afraid of, And they kind of looked at him like he was crazy, and then he eventually got them to pay up a little more money. And, it's all about that meeting in the middle. And I think they finally met in the middle. But I agree with you in so much as, we are involved in many things, and we have to, in my opinion, be involved in many things, because the moment you're not involved in many things, other people are involved in many things, and that kind of alienates you. It kind of puts you in a position where, you're so America first, or you're so isolationist, if you will, that everything else is going on under your nose. So I think the approach Trump has right now is, we're all America first. Absolutely. However, we're going to make sure we're getting to peace on this level and on that level and in this conflict and in that conflict. And, my hope is that we'll get to the point where we have enough leverage to really kind of put this conflict between Russia and Ukraine to bed. I agree with you. It is a powder keg over there. They're going back and forth, killing each other, and we don't need to be there, right? Nobody needs another fight on their hands. But at the same time, who would we be if we weren't there, right? And if we were just saying, hey, good luck, NATO, take care. I don't know if now's the right time to do that. Art, thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. Tony in Montreal, shout out to you guys. Paul, everybody else online, sorry about that. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.